Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. In this GarageBand Creator Series video, I'll be talking to a musician, a GarageBand user, and an artist who has released his own album using GarageBand. It's true, and we're going to jump in right now. And even better, this is our first GarageBand Creator Series that is going to be 100% live. So if you're here on the live chat, hello to you. But more importantly, who is also here live is Mr. Glen Clark. How are you tonight, Glen? How are you doing?
Hey, Pete, I'm really well, thanks. Good evening from Christchurch, New Zealand.
Christchurch, New Zealand. You are my first New Zealander that has been on the show here. So welcome.
Awesome.
It is
Thanks
great
very
to
much.
have you here on GarageBand Creator Series. So if you're new to the channel or if you're new to this series, what we like to do here is, this is Studio Live today. My name's Pete Johns, where I like to help you create, record, and release your best music. And I like to learn from artists like Glen because I think we can all learn so much from other people and how they create music. So Glen, why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your musical background? What's your music creation origin story?
My origin story. How long have you got? That's fair enough. Look, it's a fairly higgledy-piggledy background story, really. It's everything from I did one of those tests when I was at sort of 11 at intermediate school. They give you a hearing test, and I think I scored perfect pitch. So they threw a violin at me and said, "Right, you're playing the violin," which I did for a year or so. I don't know how, because I can't read music, so it's so somehow I fudged my way through that. But it's funny. I was watching your live stream the other day with Mike Enjo and Ron Ward, and you're talking about some of the nostalgia of your first recording experience, and it kind of got me thinking that the first actual recording experience I had was in the late 80s. I had a mate who worked for a radio station. And we sneakily went in there on weekends, go in at 10 o'clock on a Friday night, leave at 5 a.m. in the morning, and we used the studio. I'm not sure how much use I was because I couldn't play an instrument. I could do a bit of singing, and that was about it. But we wrote some songs and recorded them on a cassette tape, which was a bit of fun. Sort of on tape and all that sort of stuff. And then later on, I suppose it would have been mid-90s, there was a guy at work who was selling an acoustic guitar and selling it for $40. And I said, well, I'll take it off your hands. And I took it home, and it sat there for 6 months. And then I decided I had to learn this guitar thing. And, of course, there was no YouTube or resource to kind of learn. So I actually taught myself from a book. Which is probably why I can't read music, because so I don't consider myself a fantastic musician. But in saying that, in sort of early 2002, myself and some like-minded guys formed a band. We're a covers band. We're still playing today, so 17 years down the track, we're still playing. We're a 5-piece covers band. We're called Decoy Duck. And we play probably every month or so. I play rhythm guitar and probably sing about 50% of the songs. So, rhythm is about where my skill level plateaued. I can't play lead breaks or anything like that. It's just my fingers and my brain don't seem to want to do that sort of thing. But underlaying all that, I've got a theatre background as well, so I've been in a lot of shows, and I was fortunate enough to be in the lead of a musical version of The Witches of Eastwick last year. So played the lead role in that, and so live theatre, live band, all that sort of stuff is primarily my sort of musical background.
I love that, and I love that story about getting the guitar and then having it sit there for a while. I think we've all had it. I'm totally going to learn that and then sit there. And I had a similar story, but mine was my brother had a guitar, and I used to sneak into his room and had the guitar player's handbook. Same thing. Couldn't read music, but I'm like, that's how you do an A chord, and that's how you do an E chord. And now I'm away. That's all you need to know.
That's all I
That's
needed was the letters, the E and the little M.
That's
You know?
it. Exactly. Yeah. No, your majors and your minors. No, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So, yeah, really good to hear. And now, clearly, your guitars have multiplied and bred because they're
Yeah,
floating behind you there now.
gear acquisition syndrome, I believe it's called.
Oh,
So.
no. All of us middle-aged men have gear acquisition syndrome. Alrighty. So thank you to those who are here live, by the way. If you are here live and you've got questions for Glen, we will put him on the spot because he is our first live guest on the GarageBand Creators series. So if you do have a question, please throw it in the chat. Or if you just want to tell us where you're from and say good day and throw out your comment, we'll say hello to you. So I just want to say hello here. We've got Thomas Gelwin here. Great to see you here. We've got Tank on Cleaning. We've got Thunderbird, 650 Thunderbird. My man, Jason Robert, is here as well. So thank you for everyone who has dropped in live so far. We're going to continue on, though, because we want to find out all about Glen's experience here. So this is GarageBand Creators series. So we need to talk about GarageBand. What is it that got you into recording and creating in GarageBand?
The band, essentially. We've never done any original songs, and we were rehearsing around at a mate's place where we kind of crowded into his living room, and he decided he'd start to record our rehearsal. And I think he was using a different DAW at the time, or DAW, I'm not sure what you call it, but and he plugged a few microphones around the room and we recorded ourselves. And I took copies of that home, and I had a Mac with GarageBand on it, and I wanted to add some little extra bits, but I didn't know how. So that kind of was the start of, I wanted to tidy them up, maybe, add a bit of reverb and, various bits and pieces. So, and from there, it was pretty much a case of how on earth do I use this program? And that's when I discovered the joy of the likes of Lewin Barringer and Patrick Beard. And I'm pretty sure I binge watched everything on their channels for like from go to woe. And it really gave me, that grounding in GarageBand. And I didn't do a great deal with the tracks that we'd recorded with the band. But during that time, I was flicking through some old paperwork, and I discovered probably about half a dozen songs that I'd written way back when I first started learning the guitar. And so I pulled them out and strummed them away, and I thought, they're not too bad. I wonder, I might try and record one. And that's where it really kicked off, was just trying to record it. And it kind of became a bit of a bucket list thing for me to do, to record a song. And then, because then I naturally wondered, how do people get it onto iTunes and Google Play and stuff like that? And so that was my a real motivation to try and research that and try and get on there.
So we actually have that album here, which is this one here. So if you do want to check that out, check out the link down below, and you can actually check out Glen's album. And we've got a great link there where you can watch it on. You can listen to it on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play Music, and all the other places. So check that one out there. Now, so that got you into GarageBand, and you've been creating in there for a while. What would you say is your proudest moment using GarageBand so far? What's been that's made you tick?
Probably the major tick would be the album. After I recorded the first song, I kind of thought to myself, well, if I'm going to put one song out there, I might as well put 13 out there. So I had to write and record, a whole heap more. And so probably, releasing that was a real buzz for me. But I think I get a real kick out of just people's reactions to your music. So when I posted on my Facebook page or on the GarageBand users page and things like that, it's just cool to see people's reactions. And that's, that for me is, knowing that your music has had an effect on someone is really cool,
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it is cool. And if you haven't already, if you are a GarageBand user, you're probably already on the GarageBand users Facebook page. And I know that's where I first sort of started listening to your music, Glen, and checking that out. And you've got a particular song on there that you shared with us. And it was funny because it's called Ashen Face. And it's about You can tell us a little bit more about it. But let's just say
Yeah.
that I listened to that song the night before I was going on a work trip and getting on a plane at 6 o'clock the next morning. So I wanted to thank you for that. But why don't you let folks know a little bit about that song, because it was pretty amusing.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Pete. Yeah, it's I try not to write about topics that are. I try and avoid the usual topics that people write about. I try and write about unusual things if I can. And I was on a flight similar to you, coming back to Christchurch from a work conference, and it got a bit turbulent along the way, and it was an evening flight, and I kind of looked out of the window of the plane to try and spot where the horizon was as the plane was bouncing around, and I sort of saw my reflection in the window, and it just that imagery sort of stuck in my mind, and it was this kind of ashen face looking out of the looking back at me from the window. So and that just kept going around in my mind, and I just decided that I'll put something down on paper, and found a cool groove to go with it, and some probably slightly disturbing words, because I've of course never let the truth get in the way of a good story. I made it as if the plane is about to crash, so it's a story about the last minutes of an aeroplane trip that's gone wrong. Kind of thing.
So very reassuring to listen to that one on the trip home. That's interesting stuff. What I wanted to ask you, so we've been through to how to be created. What is next for you? So a lot of people talk about using GarageBand and maybe look down a little bit on GarageBand. You're still using it now. Have you got any other things that work, and will you still be creating using GarageBand as you move forward?
Oh, absolutely. I've looked at other DAWs as well, like many people, but actually GarageBand does everything I need it to. It's a really cool program, and so I'm continuing to create in GarageBand. It's probably my so what's next is I'm actually probably 1.5 songs away from finishing my second album. So I'm planning on releasing that once I write the last song. I'm in the middle of recording the second to last song, and I'm planning on releasing that later this year at some stage. I've kind of got the artwork planned, and and all that sort of thing all set to go, and I use DistroKid as far as distributors is concerned. It's super easy and barely costs you anything, sort of thing. So it's a really cool service.
It is a very cool service, and I recommend DistroKid. And if you are looking to release your music, and I think we were chatting just in the pre-show about how it is, and you mentioned it was on your bucket list, and it was kind of the same for me too. And there's literally, if you're on the fence about sharing your music, there's literally nothing better than that first time. I don't know about you, Glenn, but the first time that you see your name and your album and your artwork, and then you hit play, and you're playing it on iTunes or you're playing it on Spotify, and you actually have that album released. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty good experience. So is that an exclusive here? I can say that's
it is an exclusive. It's a Studio Live Today exclusive. I've got an album coming out later this year. So it's really cool. And you're right. It's just that what I really enjoy, especially with things like Spotify, are the diagnostics that you get, and you can see that, oh, my song was listened to in Sweden, or all these random places around the world that you never expect your music to get to, and so that's really cool when you sort of see that sort of thing. So yeah.
So cool. We've got a question, because we are here live. We're live on the stream tonight. So Thomas says, do you prefer keeping cover songs in line with the original song, or rather add your own additions and add your own flair? So I guess referring to your cover band, you've been playing for 17 years. When you're picking out the hits, do you keep them standard, or do you throw in your own flair? I think that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm just going to go back to the band name, which is Decoy Duck, because what I say next, I don't want to offend anyone. So we often refer to it when we take a cover song, we like to duck it up, we try to be a bit quirky with our covers, and we also try and mash things together. We did one of our covers is the White Stripes' Seven Nation Army,
Yeah,
and that meshes really nicely with Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams. But believe it or not, so it's that sort of,
yeah, I can hear it ringing in my head.
so it's that sort of thing that we like to try and do, and all sorts of unusual instruments and things like that as well. So yeah, we don't stick to the original. Some of them, sometimes we do, but we play what makes us happy, and that invariably, if we're having a good time when we're playing, then that often translates to the audience as well, and you'll get a crowd of people that are jumping up and down and having a great time. So yeah.
Excellent. I like it. So yes, adding a little bit of flair, I think, works well with covers. But a lot of folks actually record their covers in GarageBand as well. And I think it's a great thing to do. Is if you're getting into music, if you're not recording your own music or you're not writing original songs yet, just learn by creating covers.
Start with a cover. Absolutely, yeah.
And you learn a lot about it. I bet when you had that first $40 guitar and that you were trying to learn, you probably weren't making up your own songs at that point. You were probably trying to play Smoke on the Water or whatever it was.
Anything that had an E, an A, and a D in it,
Exactly right. Was it Gloria?
Pretty much.
Everyone learned how to play Gloria,
which is one of the songs that we do.
Oh, there you go. We've gone full circle. It's like we planned it all out. Excellent. So let's jump back into a few more GarageBand questions before we finish up here. So you've been using GarageBand for a while now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you use GarageBand on the Mac primarily or exclusively?
Primarily on the Mac. I've got an iPad Pro, which I experiment. I use GarageBand to experiment with things. So I guess I quite often, if I've got the iPad with me at work kind of thing, and I'm just trying to playing with maybe a little virtual instrument track or something like that. I'll do something there, or if I just record an acoustic part in there, I can sort of play around with what sort of drum beat I might like and that sort of thing. But primarily, I do everything on Mac, and I find it super easy. It's really, really cool.
Excellent. And you did mention, Lewin Barringer and Patrick Bett. I have had Patrick on the show. I do need to extend the invite to Lewin. So if you watch this, Lewin, hit me up, or I'll contact you soon, because it would be great. I know folks would love it. Everyone I talk to, especially those that use GarageBand on Mac, basically say I binge watched all of Lewin's stuff and then I learned how to use GarageBand on Mac. It's a common thing that's happened. So over all those years that you've been using GarageBand, what would you say is your top tip to others for creating in GarageBand if they're getting started or they're finding it challenging?
Good question. I've probably got a couple. Probably my top tip, the one that I've learned most recently, is mixing at low volumes. That to me has made a big difference to my finished mixes. So drop the volume down as low as you can, so it's barely audible, and your headphones are on your monitors. Flick it into mono as well if you can, because that also sort of centers all those the instruments. And as soon as you do that, you really hear when something pops out of the mix, or that vocal's too loud or whatever. It just really helps. I've recently bought a pair of Avantone mix phones because I've got a young family and I do a lot of my mixing through headphones. I use the Avantones because they've actually got a mono switch on them, so I can actually flick the I think I've got them over here somewhere. Yeah. So simple switch on that side, flick it into mono. And just drop the volume down. So really cool set of mixing headphones that I think Lewin recommended these actually. So
that is so cool. So what are those again? Because they're going on my list.
They're called Avantone mix phones. Or Avantone.
GarageBand, Avantone, Avantone. It's whatever it is. So,
mix phones, I'm sure on.
There you go. Well, you probably jumped on to the next question, which is about gear, but we'll jump into that in a minute. Jason Robert, who's here, who I had on the show in the last episode, love a good mashup. Yeah, who doesn't love a good mashup?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is awesome. And we've got another question here. So so Take On Cleaning says, do you have a standard practice for creating an original song? So do you are you a music then lyrics, or are you a lyric then music kind of guy most of the time?
Oh, that's an awesome question. My I tend to create when I'm zoned out, and it's usually either washing the dishes or
Mm,
it's in the shower. Most often it's in the shower, and I'm just kind of humming a melody or a song, and maybe a lyric will pop into my mind, and that's what sort of starts things. So my most recent song is a song called Forgotten Voice, and I remember, just humming a wee tune, and the words "forgotten the sound of your voice" popped into my mind,
mm,
and I thought, oh, that's a really interesting concept. What's it about? And so the
mm.
song kind of developed from just that phrase, "forgotten the sound of your voice."
Yeah.
So for me, it's a bit of both. It's kind of, I'll hear a melody, I'll sing it into my phone, I'll try and work some chords out with it, as well as working the words at the same time. I've had songs that have taken me days to write, but I've also had songs that have taken, half an hour or an hour to just kind of appear, sort of thing. So yeah, there's no real sort of set answer.
Yeah.
It just sort
However,
of
inspiration
happens.
hits you.
I have to sort of zone out, and then all of a sudden, I'll be into the creative mode, sort of thing. So
It is. I love that point, and it's so cool because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm stuck. I've got songwriter's block. I can't do anything." And it's almost like the harder you try, the harder it
mm,
is. Sometimes if
yeah,
you just stop, like go for a walk, go walk the dog, or go have a shower, and then it's like, "Eureka! I've got the best
yeah,
idea ever for a song." As soon as you stop trying. Very, very cool. Now, you've showed us your headphones, so that might have stolen for your favorite bit of gear. But this question I like to ask people, and I always start by saying, you don't need to have the best gear to create music, and
yeah,
don't
yeah.
let not having the best gear stop you from starting creating music. However, what is your go-to piece of kit when it comes to creating? What's the one object or
Yeah.
thing that you record with that you just love?
Yeah. It's not actually a piece of hardware as such, it's a piece of software. So I use my iPhone, and I've got the Music Memos app
Ah,
on there.
yep,
So Music Memos, for those that haven't got it, is basically a voice recorder. But what it does is, um, um, it records your song, but it sort of works out what chords, what notes you're singing, and it gives you the
yep.
chords. Can also throw in a bit of a drum beat and a bass guitar line as
Mhm.
well. Um, so for example, if I've just finished with a shower and I've got a tune in my head, the first thing I'll grab
Yeah.
is my phone, Music Memos on, sing it, and then I'll work it out later on. Because I think you've got to capture those ideas while they're fresh, So and the cool thing I've discovered with Music Memos is actually you can import it into GarageBand, and it then separates the drum and the bass track, and then you've got your vocal track sitting there as well. So you can then start to play with a bit of a project. So that's probably my go-to piece of kit, along with Logic Remote as well, which I
Yeah.
use on the iPad and connect that to the Mac. So it's like a desktop extension for me. So I've got a
Mm.
virtual mixing desk there. I can create my virtual instrument tracks if I need to do that, and just using that Logic Remote rather than typing it in on a keyboard or anything like that.
Excellent. I like that. There's good tips. See, we're finding out a bunch of stuff here. So yeah, on the Mac, but you're using the Music Memos, and I have used Music Memos before, and it is a very cool app. Like it does a
Mm.
pretty good job of actually discovering the chords that you're playing.
Yeah, it's pretty
And
close. Yeah.
yeah, it's not far off at all, and especially for getting those ideas down rather than just your voice recorder.
Mm.
It is a bit of a next step up, which is very, very cool. Excellent work there. So we're sort of rounding out here, and then we'll do a final plug and make sure folks know where to go to check out all of your music on the internet. But the last question I like to ask folks is, what is the best piece of advice that either you've been given or that you've learnt over your years of creating music that you would like to pass on to others?
Oh, probably ignore your inner critic. It's
Mm,
probably the best advice I've had. It's like, you can be really hard on yourself, and um, but one of the guitarist in our band said to me, actually recently, he said, just make music for yourself. Just enjoy. It doesn't matter if it's good or it's bad. Just make music
mm,
for yourself. Make music that makes you happy, and there's no rules in what we do. Try experimenting, sticking a guitar pedal on your vocal track, and do random stuff like that, whatever makes you happy, but just ignore that inner critic first and foremost, and then just have fun. If it's not fun, it's not worth doing, right? So just do it, basically. It sounds a bit like a Nike commercial, I guess, but
it sounds so cliched, doesn't it? But
yeah. But it certainly doesn't have to be perfect. And one thing I've learned is that when you put music out there, it does affect people in different ways. It's a bit like better than art in a way. Like when you see a piece of art, you see a beautiful painting or a picture, that's fine. But music is an experience for us for 3, 4, 5 minutes, and people will often go back and listen to it and things like that. So it's kind of and it builds an emotion different to what, say, an actual visual picture does. So I think it's such a powerful thing. So just put yourself out there with music, and someone around the world will love it.
That is such a great point. I talked about this recently, that like you say, you be your own biggest critic, and that inner critic is telling you to not do things and to stop doing things. And as you proved, like you've said, you've been in theatre, and stuff happens, live shows, stuff happens. I think I did a recording sign on my door. Things like this happen when you're actually doing things, and the key thing is don't stop doing them because they're not perfect, because perfection is like the absolute enemy of done, and you want to get things done and released, because I think the only way that you're going to get better at music, and I think you mentioned in the pre-show when we were chatting that when you released your first album, you were pretty proud of that, and I've got the same sort of thing, and now you're producing new music and you look back on those older songs and you're probably thinking, why did I do that? And I've developed so much since I first did that. So it is always good. We've got a couple more things. So Jason says he uses music memos too, and that Logic Remote is great for recording live drums. So he doesn't have to get up and click record on the Mac from behind the kit. So I can imagine that would be super good. And Thomas Gelling says, a tip for creativity: go to bed, take a nap, and try dozing off thinking of music. In that wake sleep phase, your brain tends to auto-complete. Yes, Picasso did this to complete his paintings. I like that.
Oh, really? That's really cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, so you need to have a notepad or a phone or something right by your bed so you can capture those sleeping, waking state ideas. Awesome. So, we've run out of time. We didn't even get a chance to talk about your art. So, but there is a link. So there's 3 links down below. So once you finish watching this video, if you're here live or if you're on the replay, what you need to do is go down there and click all 3 of those links. You need to listen to Glen's album, check out his Facebook music page and make sure you like that one, and then check out his artwork, because I haven't even done that yet. I was going to do that. Well, if we had more time, I'd do that live here on the show. We'd start looking at your artwork. But maybe I need to start a new channel all about other artwork. That would be cool. Any final parting words from you, Glen, that you'd like to pass on to folks here?
Just a big thank you to Studio Live today for having me on. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be able to impart what little knowledge I have, and hopefully someone will get benefit of that. But I think to create to use your catchphrase, I just encourage people to create, record, release, and it's a wonderful thing getting music out there. And I think I find myself listening more to the GarageBand user music than commercial radio and things like that. It's just, there's so much amazing stuff being produced in people's homes. I'm sitting here in a living room, the kitchen's just here, and so it's just amazing what people are producing, and so just keep doing it. That's basically
Absolutely. No, very, very good words. And definitely just keep doing what you're doing, because we live in the future. I always say that we live in the future where you can just create and you can do your own thing, and leverage that and just keep creating and recording and releasing your own music. Thank you to you, Glen. It's been a pleasure and a privilege getting to know you better and learning more about your music, your creation process. Also, thank you to all those that have been here live. So thank you. We've got Thomas here, Jason, Derek, Tank on Cleaning, Solrak. So Carlito, hello to you. you. We've had Renee here. We had 650 Thunderbird. We had Alex Cruz, and we had TV Hits was here as well. So thank you to all those people. If you're watching on the replay and you got some value out of this, hit the like button. That tells me that you like these interviews and you want to learn from more awesome people like Glen, all about creating your own music. Until next time, and on behalf of my guest, Glen Clark, we'll see you next time around here on Studio Live today. Take care, folks.
Thanks.